Week 5 came and went. Let's see what happened. When you start making roster decisions, both player additions, player drops, and just roster management, how important is crowd information or what the majority of people are doing? And I don't mean our group, our league. I mean ESPN players internationally, nationally, however many there are. The reason why I ask that is because I was looking back over my roster. I was thinking about what changes I could make. Clearly, I don't have much of a powerhouse. My players seem to be consistent, but not great. So I was looking through, and something caught my attention. Notice the two players here below. Both are on my roster. Brian Thomas Jr. is clearly the number one, right? But he's in Jacksonville. Now, they've put together pretty impressive record so far, but maybe not quite so impressive statistically. And then we've got Michael Pittman Jr., who felt like maybe he was over the hill for a wide receiver. Now look across as you look at the stats there. So Brian Thomas Jr. is rostered in 97.5% of the ESPN leagues across all of the leagues, right? And he's even sitting at almost a 71% start. Now compare that with Michael Pittman. As you look down, 88% was actually a little bit lower a couple days ago with just a 51% start. Now that doesn't seem like a huge deal. You see just a very minor plus minus there for movement this week. But look over to the averages. Look where they rank among all wide receivers. Michael Pittman's averaging 6 points more per game than Brian Thomas. He's the 15th best receiver. We all have to start 2. That means there's 20 receivers being started at least, not including the flex spot, just in our league, right? There's 12 team leagues out there that would be even more. And yet he's only rostered in about half, or started in about half of the leagues, rostered in 88%. There's only been 1 week of the first 5 that Brian Thomas Jr. outscored Michael Pittman, and it was by less than a point. 0.9 of a point. Every other week, Pittman has outscored Brian Thomas Jr. So are we hanging on to him? I've kept him in my lineup. Are we hanging on to him because he's the number one and we see more upside? And we're not happy with the consistent 15.5 that Pittman's giving? So how does that factor in when you start looking at that? Do you even look at those, what the majority of ESPN teams are doing? Do you see trends and try to pick up on that? Like maybe somebody knows something you don't, or that a lot of people know something you don't? I'm kind of curious. I don't know how much it's going to affect my decision making going forward. Maybe it should a little bit more since mine isn't generally fantastic, but interesting over the first 5 weeks how this one looks, how these two players look, and how one's still being valued so much more than the other. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe ESPN league owners know something, or maybe they've all bought into the nonsense that's happening in Duval. I'm not going to say it the way they say it. Anyway, let's take a look back at our scores for the week. As we look at our first score, your commish drops second in a row, unfortunately. 134, nice and consistent, but just not enough points. Not somebody who's at this point scoring, was never broken 150 so far through the first 5 weeks, so that's not fantastic. If we look at our reigning champ and the percentages there, both did very well for their roster. We don't need to talk about the fact that Kamish had 3 people on bye, 3 players that were out, so there was only one option, which defense picked the wrong one. We don't need to talk about all that stuff. 95.5% to a perfect roster. That's going to bump the average up nicely, so we'll take that. But even that perfect roster at 140 still wouldn't have been anywhere close. So our champ, he is now on a 4-game win streak, averaging just over 167 points a game over the last 4. Is he looking to repeat? Well, he's looking to repeat. Are we worried that he might repeat? Well, we'll have to see. As we look at our next game, Whiskey Business versus Read Option. This was a little bit of a stumble for Whiskey Business. First loss of the season, 116 points, definitely not his typical. So we'll kind of chalk that up to just an off week, maybe for him, maybe for his players. If we look at what he could have done, he could have taken the win. It would have required close to a perfect roster. At 83.5, he left some points there on the bench. But Read Option, well, leaning into his 4 Cardinal players, it was just enough for that win. Thankfully, he was playing one of the few teams that he could have beaten because there were quite a few that scored a lot more. In fact, your commish could have beaten him. It's a shame I didn't get to play him. But, I don't know that 4 Cardinal players going forward is a recipe for success, especially when in this week the defense scored the most, and it was still only just over 16 points. So, we'll see. It's still sitting at 2-3, still very viable for making the playoffs. So we'll have to see. We know he's capable of scoring. We'll just have to see if he can be a little more consistent. Our next game, Pet Detectives versus our reigning last place team. So first 200-point game of the year. Congratulations. Look at the percentages. It wasn't the best he could have done. It was super close, 99%. There was just one swap, and he would have hit 202. Still not the best possible score. We still had a 214, so it wasn't the best possible score. But 200 points, even that best possible score from Hoffman would have only come up 10 points short. So really bad roster management. Once you get into the 60s, you're in commish territory there. And let me tell you, that is not going to be something that you want to look at going forward. That is not something that's going to get you anywhere into the postseason, unfortunately. But the interesting stat on this one was Hoffman's bench almost scored as much as his starting lineup. Less than a point difference. 125.14 on the starting lineup, 123.22 on the bench. So we almost had our first upside down roster, less than a point away from that. But obviously lots of points left. Could have been a little bit better. Still would have been a loss. It's tough when the team you're playing scores 200 and is the top team of the week, which Joe now puts together a 3-win streak, and he's averaging 178 plus points over the last 3 weeks. So Freight Train, I think, was mentioned. Juggernaut. I don't know. This is interesting. It'll be an interesting head-to-head when we see the champ against Joe. We'll see highest scoring total game of the year, or we'll see if this is all really sustainable. One more game, Beg Your Parsons and Peanuts. This was challenging. Beg Your Parsons has been floundering just a little bit. You look at what he could have done, 131, not even close, right? I mean, he hit it at over 90%, almost 94% to a perfect roster, and it wouldn't have been close. So, I guess when half your team is on a bye week, when half your team is come from 1 week, that bye week hurts pretty badly. But even still, 154 points for Pancho. Just missed 150 last week, just over 150 this week. Has he found something? Has he found a little spark? Is the diamond in the rough that he found, Emeka Egbuka, coming out of Tampa? Is that a spark that he needed to get back on track? That'll be interesting. If he puts Baker in, that's 60 plus points over those 2 players. Now, obviously, that's not sustainable, but we know Baker slings it, and if he's going to be slinging it to this guy, watch out. We could have a couple of freight trains going into the second half of the season. We'll have to see how that works out. Final game, Shankopotamus versus Jersey Birds. This one was actually one of the more interesting games because it was actually close. And it went down to the Monday night game. And it was Mahomes and Xavier Worthy that gave Stanky just enough points to win. I actually thought the Jersey Birds was going to get that win and was going to knock him down to 1-4, which would have started making it really tough to make the playoffs. But as it is, they even out their losing records at 2-3. We'll see if that's enough for Keith to save his season. We'll see if Mahomes continues to play at the Mahomes level, over 30 points the last 2 weeks. Is he back on track? Well, I know Keith hopes so, because that would put his team back on track. But even looking at what they could have done, that 89.5 for both of them, interesting statistic there. Either one of them could have taken it. As it turned out, the choices that were made evens them out at 2-3. Jersey Birds may have some running back issues. That's not looking good. Neither one of his starting running backs broke 10 points. But with Lamar Jackson out, he might actually have QB issues too. So we'll have to see. That whole idea of the Miley brothers going undefeated, not only was it impossible, but now it's starting to look like that was a silly proposition, even minus the games they were going to play each other. So we'll see. Maybe Seth can win enough games for the both of them. I don't know. As we look at our standings here for through week 5, definite change in the West. Unfortunately, Kamish loved those first 3 weeks, has hated the last 2, drops down to 3rd place now with just over better than 50-50 coin flip to make the playoffs. But champ from last year looks like he's making an early push to be a repeat. So we'll have to see how that goes. And in the East, well, the whiskey stands alone. 2 games ahead of everybody else, looking like it might be an easy conference to take. We'll have to see if that continues. Still a lot of weeks left, a lot of football left to play, but that's how it stacks up right now. Look at the quick season stats. Nothing very exciting to look at. Nothing to call out. No interesting statistics from what I could see. Obviously, our number 1 team is the number 1 scoring team right now, and Whiskey Business has benefited from some low scores against him. So our number 1, number 3, top 2 scoring teams. No real surprise there, and somehow your commish gets to find his way to number 4 through something. We'll have to see if that sticks around. But percentage to perfection, how are we doing? Joe stands at the top. He hangs out. He's still the only one over 90% as you look at that there. One nice thing, your commish is rising through the ranks. It's not resulting in many more points in the game, but for a completely arbitrary, meaningless statistic like percentage to perfection, at least he's not dead last. Unfortunately, our last place team is dead last. We'll see if he works his way out of that scenario there. Works his way out of the basement. I don't know that we've ever had back-to-back last place teams. We may have to come up with a new, I don't want to call it punishment. That seems too harsh, but a new consequence to a double back-to-back losing seasons. We'll have to see how that goes. Finally, our power rankings. As we look through, we've made some pretty significant adjustments. Your commish dropping back to the middle of the pack, which kind of wasn't really a big surprise. And interesting, the bottom 2 there, your champ from last year. We'll have to go back and look and see. This might be a clinic for how to fix your season, but I don't know where the 9th place came from out of the draft, but that is a significant adjustment. That's almost as bad as Shankopotamus dropping from 2 to 6. Almost as far, because it's not bad, 9 to 1. But what's interesting is Beg Your Parsons still is projected to end number 4. So we'll have to see. Nobody really knows where Wilson gets all this information. Personally, I think someone's just shaking the magic 8 ball and coming up with answers. I don't know. We'll have to see how realistic any of this is. Pet Detectives gets the number 3, sticking with the number 3, so I guess maybe 10%. They got 1 right so far through 5 weeks. I don't know. Again, meaningless statistic. Just have to win games. As we look ahead to this week, all games are meaningful, so enjoy week 6.